I'm glad you've joined us for another episode of The Recovery Room. Today is another SongTalk episode where I invite a guest to discuss the lyrics of an original song that relates to affair recovery. Today's song is titled Haunting of My Heart, a song I wrote to reflect the experiences of those who have been abandoned by a spouse or partner. And I thought it would be a good follow-up to the recent Runaway Husbands episodes.
I call to the quiet, I whisper your name, but silence won't answer. It's always the same. You're the phantom of my soul, haunting of my heart, a spirit of the...
You'll hear portions of the song as it's being discussed, and it will be played in its entirety at the end of the podcast. If you'd like to download an audio copy of the song, visit the episode page at affairhealing.com. A link is provided in the notes. I'm happy to welcome a new guest and friend to today's podcast, Betsy Prentice. Betsy has a master's degree in marriage and family therapy and is currently counseling with an associate's license under supervision at the Marriage and Family Clinic here in Central Indiana. We connected earlier this summer over a shared passion for helping couples heal from infidelity wounds. If you'd like to know more about Betsy or her practice, you'll find links in the episode notes. When we started our conversation and I asked Betsy my first question, she surprised me by starting out with a compliment, which I certainly appreciated. She offered it sincerely, and since I believe that the receiving of the gift honors the giver, I'll include it here.
Well, I first just want to say thank you, Tim, for using your creativity to offer people in this situation, both betrayed partners and betraying partners, hope for healing. Your message is so needed. And so I just want to say thank you, first of all, for using your creativity through song to connect with people and just offer this message of healing and hope. So want to say that right off the bat.
I appreciate that. One more thing before we get started. If you'd like to stay informed about the new resources we're constantly making available, in addition to these podcasts, sign up for our weekly newsletter. The emails are encouraging and informative. You'll find the link in the episode notes. Now let's talk about The Haunting of My Heart.
Welcome to The Recovery Room, a podcast presented by affairhealing.com.
In this healing place, in this healing place.
I know not everyone who has a partner who's had an affair has the experience of being left and is alone on the other side of it. And I also know that there are men whose wives leave them and they're alone. But I wrote this song specifically from the perspective of the woman whose husband is left. And she's sitting there trying to put pieces back together, trying to make sense of a life and a future and a marriage that she thought was one way, and now is discovering the reality is something else. And so it's just that picture of someone that's wandering in a house that used to be a shared place. Now it's only the memory of someone else's presence. What struck you in listening to this song?
When I first heard Haunting of My Heart, so much grief, so much sadness and loss. Like you said, the person is gone, but in so many ways, they're still there. There were a few lines that said, your footsteps echo softly when I walk up the stairs. I feel the warm beside me, but you're not really there. And so you really hear this struggle, this tension. On one hand, the person is physically gone, but at the same time, they are still very much there. They're there in the footsteps, and that word haunting felt so accurate to me. And the song very much sends that message of they're there, but they're not. That ambiguous loss, that struggle, that tension is what I felt when I first listened to the song.
Your footsteps echo softly when I walk up the stairs. I feel the warm beside me when you're not really there. Your touch is just a phantom passing through my skin. Memories of embraces I will never feel again. I call to the quiet, I whisper your name, but silence won't answer. It's always the same. You're the phantom of my soul.
You work with individuals and couples that are struggling in this area. I'm assuming you've probably had some women in finding out that a husband has had an affair and are at least left wondering, are they coming back? Or it's been declared, our marriage is over and I'm leaving for somebody else. Anything stand out to you from their stories and their experience?
Yeah, just grief, right? There's been a loss of a relationship. There's this sadness. And it's, again, I mentioned earlier, ambiguous loss. The person is still alive. They're still out living their life, but the relationship is gone. And so they are grieving the loss of a really, really significant relationship. And there's a lot of sadness in that. So when I do work with individuals who are in this situation, we give space to say, hey, that sadness, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what your grief looks like. How can we give yourself permission to be sad? There's this urgency, right, to move past the sadness. I want this behind me. And the truth is the healing comes in being truthful and honest with ourselves and saying, hey, I'm sad. This relationship mattered to me. I cared about this person and now they're gone and it wasn't my choice. I didn't consent to this. Yeah. And so it's a really complicated grief.
I wrote the first song that we did a SongTalk about this healing place is about hope for restoration. And in the middle of pain and grief, you can have a reasonable hope for healing. The second song was about my own experience of having an affair. I know what that feels like. This song doesn't come from my own personal experience. I've never been betrayed this way. Obviously, I'm not a woman, so I can't write from that real perspective. But like you, I've been witness to not only the woman that I betrayed and the pain that she demonstrated, showed that I saw that. And I've seen it in many, many clients, both recent and, I've been doing this for 20 years. So there have been a lot of times that the spouse is left there in confusion and in pain and grief, like you say, just trying to figure out, how do I live in this space of emptiness now? When the memory of what it was and the longing for what I wanted it to be, is gone. So, that's kind of just imagining that woman walking up the stairs, as you close things down for the night, and what that used to be like when someone was there with you, and now what it's like when you're alone.
A shadow in the moonlight, a spirit in the dawn. The ghost of love still lingers, but all of you is gone.
The chorus of the song, right? It says a spirit of the promises that have been torn apart. Those promises, exactly what you're referring to, this experience of this is what it was supposed to be. Yeah. We were supposed to raise our kids together. We were supposed to grow old together. We had this future that we planned together, and that's no longer the reality. But those memories, those promises continue to haunt the person. And so it's this kind of reckoning with, this is what I thought my reality was going to be, and it's not.
You're the phantom of my soul, haunting of my heart, a spirit of the promises that have been torn apart. You were once the angel, embrace me in your wings. Here's how the breakers fall, here's how the broken sing.
And again, so much sadness and loss and grief in that. And so I think, again, that the chorus of this song specifically speaks to that. It was supposed to be one way, and because of your choices, it's not.
So when someone's sitting in that kind of pain and confusion, And we can't look in the crystal ball and tell them for sure, well, this is what your future is going to be. How do we help them? What do you say to someone to encourage them moving forward? Because it feels utterly destructive in the moment for a lot of people and hopeless. Because, listen, I had this picture of what my future was, and it was with this other person. And, you could see the growing years and the retirement years. And now it's a whole different story, and it's blank pages, and it's foggy, and it's confusing, and it probably looks much worse than what they thought the other future was going to be. How do you help someone find hope in that?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think our tendency as humans is to just skip over all the painful stuff. We don't want to sit in the sadness. We don't want to sit in the grief. We don't want to sit in the hurt. We don't want to sit in the shame. We don't want to sit in the loneliness. And so what I find with so many of my clients, and I understand because it's uncomfortable to sit in those spaces, but there's this urgency. How do I move forward? What's the recipe? What's the formula to not feel this way anymore? And I very much believe that to heal, we have to give ourselves permission to feel. And so there's a line in your song that says, "This hurt will be over, this haunting will end." And that is what people sitting, in the chair across the room from me they want me to take their hurt away. How do I get rid of this hurt? The message of hope I'll give right now today is that the hurt that you are experiencing today in the immediate aftermath of either the discovery or the disclosure of your partner's affair, that hurt, that frequency of the hurt, the intensity in which you're feeling it will dissipate with time. But 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we can't make any promises that hurt won't pop back up.
Right.
What I try to do with my clients is build this tolerance for uncomfortable emotions like hurt and help them to identify the need in that. In our hurt, what do we need? We need attention. So our partner is no longer able to give us that attention. Who can? Is it a friend? Is it your therapist? Is it, a family member? And so instead of, again, trying to shove that hurt down or dismiss it or sweep it underneath the rug, how can you examine that feeling? What is that emotion telling you that you need? And where can you get that need met? For some people, it's, like I said, a family member. Some people, it's their therapist. For some people, it's God. They get to decide who gets to meet that need for them.
I like that hesitancy to not just offer platitudes and this empty hopefulness, like, oh, you're going to be fine. I think a lot of times friends around them will want to tell them that, like, oh, you're going to be okay. There's someone better for you out there. In fact, let's go out right now and we're going to help you meet somebody new and try and just feel that hurt and that pain. And so we want to be able to say, you're going to be fine. I wish I could say, hey, it's 30 days from now, this is all going to be over. 6 months from now. But you said sometimes years, sometimes decades. For some people, the rest of their life, they will feel the effect of that pain and that loss and that someone that left them. That's the truth. But you and I both believe in the kind of healing that can give the hope to someone. It's not going to feel like it does right now. When I wrote the ending of this song, maybe it's a little too subtle, but I meant for it to be a little ambiguous because it ends with that phrase that you mentioned.
Yeah, this hurt will be over, this haunting will end.
Yeah, but it ends with that almost sounding like a haunting itself. It kind of goes into this reverb with this echo. It's almost like this wish that she has that may or may not ultimately come true.
Someday the love will light up again. This hurt will be over, this haunting will end. This haunting will end.
I mean, will it ever end completely? Maybe not. Will the hurt go away 100%? Maybe not. Is that going to happen soon? Probably not. But still, the legitimate hope that all right, there can be love in my life again. I can get past this. That part is reasonable. We don't have to live in the haunting for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, that's so beautifully said. And that's true, again, that the hurt indicates to me that you care. That relationship mattered to you. Your heart was attached to something that's been lost. And so to completely dismiss that hurt and get rid of it and say it's never going to come back, there's implications around that. That relationship no longer matters. And that could be the case, but I don't know that it is always. And so again, what I would say today is there is hope that the intensity, the weight of the hurt that you feel right now, in my experience in working with individuals, that heaviness is lightened with time and with strategies and with connection with others. And it may pop up. The impacts, the effects of someone else's choices may show up down the road. And when they do, I think you honor that hurt, you give it the attention that you need, and you're able to move on more quickly.
In one of the verses, I imagined this relationship from the context of one room in their house and all the things that had happened in that room, all the things that room had been witness to in its history and its presence, and maybe what might happen in the future. She's thinking that one day the laughter filled up this room, that their relationship was full of joy and good things. Then she said, one day the silence creeped through the gloom.
One day the laughter filled up this room. One day the silence seeped through the gloom.
And that's not the experience of every marriage, but there are many times that an affair comes in the context of a disconnection that's already taken place in the marriage relationship. That's not always true, but sometimes it is. And that's what that line kind of gives reference to, that somehow the disappointments in this relationship, instead of that couple finding a way to find reconnection with each other, it just turned into despair and silence, existing together without being companions with one another. Then that hope comes in. One day the love will light up again, the hurt will be over, and the haunting will end. But it's that whole transition of what was so wonderful in the past. And of course, when we're in that experience, we believe it's going to last forever. And it never does. I mean, every relationship has problems. What we need to really work on doing is when that discouragement comes into the relationship, instead of letting it turn to gloominess and despair, that results in a silence. It's never really dealt with. We just learn to exist. We're not laughing together anymore. We're just existing. I wish she could go back to that room and say something different in it.
Yeah. What's coming to mind for me is oftentimes the conditions of a marriage before someone engages in an affair or chooses to, step out of the marriage in one way or another. The conditions are such that people are living together. They're in that room together, but there's that silence. There's that lack of connection. So often we forget that we have to be intentional in our relationships. We have to cultivate connection. It just doesn't happen naturally. I think back to when you first start dating someone, then that connection is kind of automatically happening.
That's the laughter in the room.
Exactly. That's the laughter in the room. But then life continues on and we get busy with jobs and school and kids and, fill in the blank. And if we're not intentional, then we can really be going down the slippery slope where the conditions in our marriage leave us feeling really disconnected and alone. And so, I think that's a beautiful caution in the song. You mentioned, I wonder what it would be like for her to go back into that room. And for me, what comes to mind is like, how can we be aware now? How can we do kind of an inventory in our relationships of, are we connected? Yes, we're living together. Yes, we're doing life together and, taking the kids together and working out the logistics. But are we connecting? Are we being intentional with our relationship so that we don't get to a place where it's silent and one of us is looking outside of the marriage?
I think that line came out of my own experience in my own marriage. Gloom may be a little strong of a word, but I think discouragement, despair would obviously fit. And it had turned into a kind of separate silence. And I will blame myself most for that. I mean, that was just my go-to. I mean, when difficulty comes up, my tendency is to withdraw and separate. That's the thing I've really had to work on. But instead of kind of going after that thing that would have renewed connection and made that marriage more satisfying in the way that I even wanted it to be, I just turned inward, became critical, judgmental, thinking, well, I guess this marriage will never be what I want it to. I mean, it was so selfish in my perspective, just thoughtful about, am I happy or am I not happy? Didn't have any awareness of how I was contributing to the disconnection that we had. But that's what it became. It just became this disappointing silence between us. And just thinking, well, I guess this is the way it will always be. But in that context, it made it even more vulnerable for something else to step in and fill that silence, fill that separation with something that felt better to me.
So much of this song is about the experience of loneliness, and the antidote to loneliness is to be fully known. And that sounds easier said than done, right? Because to be fully known, we do have to take risks. We have to be vulnerable. We have to be willing to share some of our darkest, feelings and thoughts with our partner. And that's really scary. And so I just want to acknowledge that, like, in our loneliness, the antidote is to be known, and it's not easy because it requires us to be vulnerable in a way that perhaps we haven't been before.
Speaking of feeling alone, that's the other verse in this where I just tried to picture this woman in that house sitting at the table, again, a place where there was a common memory of things that had happened before. She can sit there and all of that fuels her remembrance of things that were done and said. And yet the chair is empty now. The words aren't being spoken now. And it just kind of ends with this practical picture of, well, what am I left to do? Put away the dishes, lock up the doors, which are now, that's all her responsibility, being alone in the house.
Alone at the table, remembering the day you sat down beside me, asked if I would stay. But now your chair is empty, no questions anymore. I'll put away my dishes, I'll lock up all the doors.
This song isn't meant to present a problem and then wrap it all up with here are all the answers and the solutions. Or to say, here's how you're going to struggle, but here's all the ways it's going to be fixed soon. Don't worry about it. The struggle is real. The pain is real. The loneliness is real. And some people are going to battle with that probably for a long time. As you said, hopefully don't do it alone. You find that person that listens to you, that helps you, that encourages you.
I find that so often people who have been betrayed feel like, I'm carrying this pain by myself. This burden is mine and mine alone. I have to go throughout my day carrying this hurt all by myself. The truth is, you don't have to do that alone. There are so many resources, so many people that want to step into that pain with you. And so I think that's part of the work is who is safe around me that I'm willing to give some permission to take some of this load off of me, because it's too much to carry alone.
Well, this isn't just a song with ideas. It's based on the experience that both of us have witnessed other people go through. But this doesn't have to be the sad story of someone just living forever in this lonely house.
Yeah.
That can change.
Yeah. And I think that's so important for your listeners to hear that. And I say this with caution because I don't want to discourage anyone, but progress after a betrayal, after an affair, after infidelity is slow. While that may sound discouraging, I want to just encourage listeners and say good things do take time. And the healing process isn't meant to be, a fast track. It's meant to slow us down, to say, okay, what matters to me? What can I learn from this? How do I want to use the information that I gained from this experience to move forward and live in alignment with my values and the person that I want to be? The song has this haunting kind of spirit about it. Even listening to it, you feel that haunting. But it ends with this message of hope. And so, Tim, I'm just curious, what is your message of hope for your listeners who may be in the same situation as the woman in this song?
I want to go back to the song, This Healing Place, because I think it's a phrase from there that I would also use in applying to answer the question you've just asked. That others have been here in much the same way as you. So that's the first thing. What this feels like, this emptiness, is so personal and so tied to the story that you have of your own life that it seems unique to you and you wonder if you can ever get out of it. But many people have gone through this and have felt exactly what you're feeling now and have gone through the same sense of hopelessness, but all of them making it through to the other side. You will too. I'd also say, applauding what you've already said, this is a time when you're going to feel like just shutting down and not wanting to do anything. And yes, take some time to grieve. But you can also learn from this pain. You can learn something in this loneliness that's going to help you become a stronger individual, in this case, a stronger woman in some way on the other side of it. Otherwise, what is the purpose of, we just live in despair if there's no benefit or meaning from all of this. But I have found that those difficult times in a person's life are often the times when they allow themselves to be open to it, become the catalyst for the most significant growth or change in their life. So be open to that and learn from it. I don't know what their future is going to be. I would like to say, man, there's a love around the corner that is going to blow your socks off, but I can't. There may be no other relationship in that person's life, although I've been witness to a lot of surprises in past clients, and that's always a good thing. I would just say that there's hope for a good story. Your story is not done, and it's different than what you thought it was going to be, but it can still be a very good one.
Here is the complete song, Haunting of My Heart, written by Tim Tedder.
A shadow in the moonlight, a spirit in the dawn. The ghost of love still lingers, but all of you is gone. Your footsteps echo softly when I walk up the stairs. I feel the warmth beside me when you're not really there. Your touch is just a phantom passing through my skin. Memories of embraces I will never feel again. I call to the quiet, I whisper your name, but silence won't answer. It's always the same. You're the phantom of my soul, haunting of my heart, a spirit of the promises that have been torn apart. You were once the angel, embrace me in your wings. Here's how the breakers fall, here's how the broken sing. Alone at the table, remembering the day you sat down beside me, asked if I would stay. But now your chair is empty, no questions anymore. I'll put away my dishes, I'll lock up all the doors. You're the phantom of my soul, haunting of my heart, a spirit of the promises that have been torn apart. You were once the angel, embrace me in your wings. This hurt will be over. This haunting will end. This haunting will